Okay, will the May 1st, 2013 meeting of the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission please come to order? Thank you all for your attendance this evening. For the benefit of those present who may not have participated in the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, I will review our public hearing procedure, which is as follows. We will read the legal notice for the public hearing portion of this meeting as published in the local newspaper. The applicants will then be invited to come forward and present their case, explaining to the Commission and the public what is specifically being requested of the subject property. Written comments from town agencies pertaining to the application will then be read into the record if the Commission has received any. The Commissioners will then ask their clarifying questions, and then the public will be invited to ask any questions they have about the application. I will then ask those in attendance who support the application to please come forward and make their statement, and then I will ask those in attendance who oppose the application to please come forward and make their statement regarding the application. As this is a public hearing, it will be necessary for those coming forward to ask questions or to speak for or against any application to please identify themselves and state their name and address for the record prior to proceeding. At the conclusion of all statements from the public and the applicant, I will close the public hearing. The applicant and the public are then free to leave or remain for the balance of the public hearings and the regular meeting, at which time the Commission will discuss each application under consideration and try to reach a decision. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decisions of this Commission. The applicant and/or any aggrieved party with legal standing will have the right to appeal this decision to Superior Court within the statutory time frame if they so desire. All decisions reached at this meeting will be available to the public the next day by either visiting or calling the Planning and Zoning Office after 9:30 a.m. Seated this evening are the following Guilford Planning and Zoning Commissioners: David Grigsby, Walter Corbiere, I'm Ray Bauer, Tom Cost, Peter Golitz, Kim Bailey, Frank DeAndrea. Town staff present this evening are George Crowell, Town Planner, Reggie Reed, Zoning Enforcement Officer, our recording secretary, Donette, and the videographer this evening is Shannon Gale. Will the secretary please read the legal notice?
Legal notice, Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission. Notice is hereby given that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on May 1st, 2013 at 7:30 p.m. at the Nathaniel B. Green Community Center, Monunketuk Room, 2nd floor, 32 Church Street, Guilford, Connecticut, for the following purposes. 1. 111 West Lane LLC, property located at 111 West Lane, map 5, lot 31A, zone R6, coastal area management site plan revision, to allow removal and replacement of trees and bushes that were storm damaged within 100 feet of critical coastal resources, section 273-91. 2. Shoreline Strings, Trolley Barn Crossing, property located at 125/129 Water Street, map 32, lot 17, zone R3, special permit for change in non-conforming use from office to music instruction, section 273-13C, section 273-99. Item 3, Sharon Crane, property located at 151 Neck Road, map 25, lot 14G, zone R6, coastal area management site plan approval for replacement of previously existing deck destroyed by Tropical Storm Sandy on a property within 100 feet of critical coastal resources. Item 4, Joshua McGuire, property located at 128 Tuttle's Point Road, map 17, lot 18B, zone R2, coastal area management site plan application for reconstruction/repair of a previously existing seawall in the same location and at the same height as it was before Tropical Storm Sandy, section 273-91. Copies of these applications are available for inspection in the office of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Town Hall South, 50 Boston Street, Guilford, Connecticut. At this hearing, persons may attend and be heard, and written communications will be received. Dated at Guilford, Connecticut, this 11th day of April, 2013. Ray Bauer, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Walt. The first item on the agenda, 111 West Lane LLC. The applicant has requested that we continue that to May 15th, so we'll not be going forward with that tonight. If I could just get a motion to continue that application to...
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay,
Aye.
that's continued to May 15th. Next item we'll open the public hearing with is Shoreline Strings. This is property located at 125-129 Water Street. This is a special permit for change of non-conforming use from office to music. Who will be presenting? Okay, sir. Sure.
Liberato Pelosi. I live at 154 Laurel Hill Road in Branford. And I own, Charlie Barnes Cross, and we're just trying to rent out some office space for use as a, for a violin teacher. We're not making any changes to the inside of the building or the outside of the building. And we're going to share the sign space that we have. So you don't put her name on part of the sign if everything gets approved, okay. It's about 1,000 square feet that she's renting, and she's going to be using the whole space for herself. There's no changes to the inside or the outside.
Okay, so there's presently office space? Or it was, the last tenant was using it as office space?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, when the building is old and it's been there for a long time, and I'm just trying to make the best use out of the space without changing it. It's like it's not easy to make it residential, so we're trying to just, use it as it is and not make any changes.
Okay. We did receive a letter from Dennis Johnson, Director of Health for the Town of Guilford, dated May 1st, related to the application. The applicant's proposed use of the building for a music studio is compatible with the septic system serving the property. Questions from the commission?
I do.
David?
Is this, this is a non-conforming use, and so every time you're changing the use, you're here for the special permit. Previously, the floor craze occupied, a significant portion of the building, and then is it a mortgage broker or something that had the office use?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still there.
Uh-huh.
Floor space, occupies like 7,000 square feet of it. Then the office space was used by
Wells Fargo. Is that the same space that we're talking about?
Yeah.
And it was the same 1,000 square foot that Wells Fargo had, so we're not further subdividing the problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Darius, we're not supposed to increase the nonconformity. If anything, we'd like to try to reduce it. So could you tell us in your own words, is this, in your opinion, a reduction of the nonconforming use, music studio, as related to the prior use that was in that space?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a reduction or an increase, but I mean, it's just like use of the space, that's already there. We're not like asking to grow the office space or to shrink the office space or vice versa. It's just that it's there and there's like no use for it.
So they're not increasing it?
Not increasing.
Parking, all regs are okay?
We don't have any special parking requirements for music installation.
Okay.
Is the
All right, thank you. David?
Is the operator of the business here? I mean, do we have a sense of what their
Yes.
anticipated hours might be? Great.
Great, thank you.
My name is Gretchen Bergeron. I live at 38 Pleasant Street in Glastonbury. I'm the owner of Shoreline Strings, which is just the business name for my music teaching studio. Basically, I teach very small groups and private lessons to mostly kids between 4 and 10 years old. I teach after school hours, so it's between 3 and 7 p.m. on the weekdays. On weekends, I only teach on Saturdays, and it's between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. A parent is always present. There's never a child on premises without a parent being there.
Classes are 3 to 4 students, 5 to
5 tops.
5 to much. Okay.
All right.
Do you put on concerts or recitals?
Not in the space. That's another, we rent another space for that.
Any other questions from the commission? at this
The
point?
office space before, this is for the town staff probably, did the office space meet our parking requirements?
Yes, it did.
All right, any questions from the public? Anybody in the public wishing to speak in favor of the application? Sir?
Sid Gale, 250 Flag Marsh Road. And let me say in advance, I do not know the owner of the property, nor the tenant who would benefit from this. So I hope that any of my remarks will not be held against them. This application ought to be a slam dunk, no-brainer, home run, except so too should two of the prior applications of this property that's come before this commission, and they were not. The first of those, I had the opportunity to observe as an alternate on this commission about 10 years ago. And the second one, I had the opportunity to observe a year ago when it came before you in the March meeting. And anticipating that the same kind of arguments that were used in opposition at those times may be used again, I would like to explain why I support this, because it's an issue broader than the application itself and the property itself. It seems to me that in both of the prior cases, and it's not my intent to rejudicate them, but rather to use them as precedents that hopefully will not be repeated tonight. In both the cases, the applicant came forward seeking a permission for use that was reasonable for the property and reasonable for the zone. If the same kind of use had been instituted in a residential property as a home office, it would have been no more offensive. And yet, oppositions were raised to the two applications that ultimately resulted in some limitations placed on the owner's ability to provide enjoyment of his property. It's my sense that to a degree sometimes this commission errs when there are conflicts between a commercial property owner and a residential property owner. It has a certain bias at times toward the residential property owner, even though perhaps there is not justification. It has what I'll call the Sword of Solomon mentality of, well, let's take out the sword, split the baby in half, and therefore will appear to be fair to both sides. We're giving one something, we want to take a lot away from the other. And in so doing, you may give one party something they don't deserve and take away from the other party something that should not have been. I think that was the case in the two prior occasions. In this case, whether this use were to be in the residential property or the commercial property is proposed, both cases would have to come before you for a special permit. So the question becomes, if there was a potential for unfairness the last time around, what is the basis for fairness this time? Because the very nature of non-conforming use essentially is difficult to achieve and is probably out of date. And yet this property is stuck in that gulag as long as it continues to exist as such. Let me give you a little anecdote. My younger daughter is a flutist of some accomplishment. In her early days, she took lessons at home, which is totally appropriate. A teacher came to visit. As she became an accomplished high school student, she gave lessons at home. Same amount of noise, same amount of inconvenience to the neighborhood as existed in the rightful use of residential property. There are residences where you have garage bands. They're just part of the residential being. So the question I would pose to you is, if there are objections to this use, what standard will you use of fairness as to whether this is appropriate in its residential zone or not? Will you hold this commercial property to a higher level of constraint because it's commercial? Or will you judge that if its presence is no more challenging to the neighborhood's peace and tranquility as would be a residential use of freedom, that it is just as appropriate? Its commercial status and its quote-unquote non-conforming status notwithstanding. I'd like to point out that, as you noted in your earlier comments, the intent of the non-conforming use is to gradually reduce its non-conformity. In some cases, such as this property, that may be extremely difficult to do without essentially winding up doing a backdoor taking, gradually making the property less and less sustainable as a commercially viable enterprise. It also flies in the face of something that's becoming more and more recognized today as desirable, which is the mixed-use zoning for property, in which case you have competing and sometimes conflicting uses coming together as residential and commercial. And that puts you in the same kind of bind that you've had here before and you will have tonight with this property, perhaps, if anyone chooses to object. So, in essence, what I'm trying to do here is to ask you to approach this applicant with perhaps a fairer frame of mind than you have in the past in this case. And I don't say that with any kind of derision to a commission that I was proudly a part of, but recognizing that every so often we fall into habits that we kind of take for granted. And because they're familiar, we think they're acceptable. I'm asking you to challenge your own basis for judgment here and to recognize that you not only diminish this property if you constrain it into non-sustainability economically, you diminish the community as well, because you contribute to the impression, you give some substance to the impression that Guilford is the commercial, unfriendly place that some people claim that it is. And I don't think it should be that. I don't think we should be unfair to the residents, but neither should we be unfair to commercial interests. Their dollars are just as green as the residential ones. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the application? Hearing none, I'll ask, is there anybody wishing to speak against the application? Sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is John Casey, and some of you may recognize me from past applications for this property. I'm here tonight. I represent Robert and Elizabeth Jelly, who are both with me here tonight, who live at 134 Water Street. And well, we're here tonight with some trepidation, but in the end, to voice our concerns and objections to granting this permit. It really is on the basis of legal principle and the standards in your zoning regulations regarding non-conforming uses. And the Jellies are very sympathetic about Mr. Pelosi. We have nothing against music studios. I don't think you'll hear an objection about noise that might come from a music studio, but it's more on the, as I said, on the legal basis. So I just want to start and put into the record, I just had one copy. It's just, I'll go through the list.
Sure, if you could give it to Donette so we can work
Sure.
the exhibit.
And just as one of the former prior speakers noted, this property does have a long and somewhat complex history. So what I've provided there is just some basic things. The assessor's map, the minutes of the March 15th, 2006 commission meeting, notice of a special permit granted from that meeting, which changed the use from industrial to the flooring showroom and warehouse. Then minutes of a January 3rd, 2007 commission meeting, a notice of a special permit from that meeting that denied a special permit for rental of office space, which is basically the same thing that's being asked for here. Then there's minutes of the October 19th, 2007 commission meeting, which again there was a request to rent office space to Wells Fargo, the mortgage broker. And at that time, those of you who were on the commission, might have been some question because we didn't object at that time. We were here. I was here with Mr. Jelly. And it was really for a neighborly accommodation to Mr. Pelosi because we appreciate the unique nature of his building and the economic reality of having a place like that. So that special permit was granted. It eventually expired when Wells Fargo left. There was another proposal to change the use of the entire property to, if I recall correctly, it was airplane parts. Electronic parts.
Recycling electronics.
Correct. And that was granted, but that sale never went through. So the minutes of the year November 3rd, 2010 and November 1st, 2010 minutes are in there. The most recent approval was last year's, I have the minutes of the April 4th, 2012 meeting and the special permit, and that granted approval for an artist studio. But that was very specific approval that is now expired as of April 12th of this year, as did all the other special permits except for the flooring showroom. That doesn't have an expiration date. The artist studio was specifically conditioned on no classes, no exhibitions, no retail sales or anything like that. And it's my understanding that the thinking of the commission was that you can have an artist studio in your house as an accessory use, and then that made it acceptable as a second use of the property. That's really what we're talking about here. And it is a legal principle. It is a zoning principle that this commission has to consider. These are the regulations that you have. It's the law we have that apply to non-conforming uses. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to let Mr. Jelly just give a little history of the property, and he's been there for 50 years. 50 years. So I think it's important to have that in the record. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Jelly.
It's 50 years this spring. It started out when we got there in 1963. Well, I should say I'm Robert Jelly, and I live at 134 Ward Street. When we got there in 1963, it was manufacturing of sailboat masts, aluminum sailboat masts. And that was very active, and in the warmer months, a lot of it took place outdoors on the Water Street side of the building. So that it really did feel like a manufacturing operation. Sometime later in the 1960s, they moved away, and a company that made custom conveyors for supermarkets and other operations moved in there. We objected to that, feeling that it was an increase of nonconformity because it was heavier manufacturing. And took an appeal, but ultimately, because it turned out to be a fairly quiet manufacturing operation without the outdoor activity that sailboat masts had, we withdrew our appeal. That continued there until early in the 2000s, and they went out of business. That's when we bought the place and came in with the flooring, showroom, and warehouse. And that clearly was a reduction in nonconformity because it was no longer a manufacturing operation. Then the next thing that we actually had in there was Wells Fargo, which was very, just the office space. We recognized that it was, in one respect, increasing the nonconformity because it was two uses in the space rather than one, which had always been the case. Even back in the days when it was a trolley barn. But because Wells Fargo wasn't going to have customers coming in, it was just people using it as office. We did not object to that, and it was approved. So we had two uses. Then they left a few years ago and moved back to one use. Their permit had expired, as I recall. Then we had the painting studio last year in the back of the warehouse area, and that was a single person using it as a painting studio. That was a one-year permit, which expired in April. It's been a very quiet operation. I don't believe she has left. Lee tells me that her paintings are still there, that she didn't use it much during the winter because it was cold. Whether she's using it now, I don't know. But in one way or another, that use continues, whether the permit continues or not. And now we have what would be a third use of the property. And as John would say, our concern really is the precedent of three uses, different traffic going at different times, and so on.
I'll sort of hit the nail on the head. The concern is a precedent, and the former speaker mentioned the precedent. When the law considers nonconformities, there's a protection in our statutes, but there's also a principle in zoning law that you want to reduce nonconformities over time. The town has made a decision that that land is appropriate as residential land, and we all may have our opinions about whether that particular spot should be or shouldn't be, but it is. It's residential land. It has to comply with your regulations for either residential uses or non-conforming uses. So when you look at the public policy favoring the abolishment of non-conforming uses, this policy is reflected in your regulations, section 273.12, which says it is the intent of these regulations that nonconformities are not to be expanded. And while one use could be in there using the offices, using the back rooms, using the warehouse, as Bob mentioned, that's one use. When you start to carve up the building and start to use it for different things, I think you use a bad metaphor, but the camel's nose under the tent. You start to say, well, where do we draw the line? If Lee has more space, it can use it for other uses, make it active. Should he allow that to get the most economic potential out of the building? Well, that's not really the concern of zoning law. Really, your concern is what's best for that neighborhood pursuant to the regulations. As I said, as I will say, the case law is making clear that in no case should non-conforming uses be allowed to increase, and that there should be no new uses or change of uses from those that have been permitted. So here we have a retail floor and showroom warehouse, and now we're asking, you're being asked to add a second use, which is typically not allowed. And while mixed-use zoning and the appropriate place in town is new urbanism, I'm all for it, but that's when the regulations permit it, and it's gone through a whole process and been vetted by this commission. You can't do new urbanism, on a spot zoning basis to individual applications. And just looking again at some of your, the relevant zoning regulations, section 273.3 states that conformity with the regulations is required. That no lot or land shall be subdivided, conveyed, or encumbered so as to make any use, building, or other structure non-conforming or more non-conforming. And I think that's what's going to happen here. In order to be allowed, this would need a special permit under section 273.13C, which says no non-conforming use of land, buildings, or other structures shall be changed to any use which is substantially different in nature or purpose from the existing non-conforming use, unless a special permit is granted. So the question for you tonight is the change, is adding a second use, making it substantially different in nature from the existing non-conforming use? For us, it's just a matter of second use, it just makes it different. You have a different user in there with different interests than the property owner, than the single use that's there, which we hope the business, we hope my kids take music lessons. I want to see music, grow as much as possible. But if it grows in this spot, it can have unintended consequences on the neighborhood.
So can I just start you there for a second about the unintended consequences? Mr. Jelly, or either one of you can answer this, I guess. Are you concerned about sound pollution specifically? Are you concerned about being disturbed by the sound of music lessons, or alternatively by the several students that would show up on a regular weekday?
We haven't spoken about the sound of music.
Well, I think that we are not concerned
Because
about.
you're pretty far. I think you're pretty far.
It's right across the street.
Yeah. Are you concerned that the sound will be disturbing your property?
The sound is not the concern. The sound is the precedent for multiple uses on the property. You haven't asked me what's going to happen with the artist studio. The artist studio is still there.
Now, this would be the same space that the artist studio is currently in?
No, this
It's
is a
above
different
it?
space.
Nope,
This
it's
is
The
our
artist
back.
studio's in the back of the building.
The artist studio was carved out of the warehouse in the back on the sense
Right.
the River Street driveway leads into the artist studio. This is the office space in the front of the building on the east front. And it's, I don't know whether it's both upstairs and downstairs.
Just down there.
Just
Well, it's just
downstairs.
downstairs.
So we'll probably get another application.
well, let me-
The artist's permit has expired,
Well,
correct?
that's what I wanted to get to. There's two uses today. There's the office space and there's the artist space, right? So there
The
were
two
two,
uses today is the showroom.
Right.
Or-
Right.
Well, there's really, I think, only one permitted use. It's the flooring, showroom,
Is the-
warehouse, because every other,
Is the office use special permit expired?
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
the Wells Fargo
Okay.
special permit.
All right, and the artist studio, which is then the third use that was added last year,
Last year.
we think that's now recently expired.
It's definitely responsible.
okay, well, what are the three uses today?
The artist studio, the artist studio is still there.
Well, okay, but I'm saying, you're saying there's three uses. Tell me what the three uses are today.
She's a woman that didn't have.
No, no.
No,
we not.
No, no.
No, please, I'm just saying, you're
It's the
stating,
floor craze retail.
Correct. And
It's
it's-
the off, right now, whether it's expired or not, it's the office in connection with the Wells Fargo mortgage business, and then there is the, whether it's expired or not, the artist
Okay,
studio
so
in the back.
those are the three,
Those
two
are
of
the-
which are
Didn't
expired.
Wells Fargo expired before we allowed the art. So there are
Correct.
only two ever going at one
What?
time.
I think,
Oh.
yeah.
And-
And technically, right now, there's
There's
one
but one.
permitted use.
It just
at the
expired in
property.
April.
Well,
Right.
Isn't that a zoning enforcement issue?
Well, it
The
it
two
could
uses that
be.
have expired?
It could be, but, I mean, we're not here to raise a zoning enforcement issue.
Well, I mean, I think it is, because if
No.
you're saying we've permitted two uses at a time, there's only one that's permitted now. If we add another one, we're back to two, so how's that increasing it?
Well,
I mean, the gist of your argument is you're saying we're adding more and more and more, but we're still at two. Is the
well,
way
here's,
I-
let me get to
All
my
right.
point.
Okay.
When the Wells Fargo use went in, it was very specially conditioned on a special use. They made representations to the commission that they come in, they have limited hours, business hours, they don't have customers. They said there might be, one person might come in on a Saturday to sign a piece of paper, but otherwise they were private bankers and they didn't see anyone. So they just needed somewhere to go and turn on their computer.
And you felt that they followed that?
And they followed that. That was fine. It was just a few extra cars in the parking lot during normal business hours, and that was fine. The artist studio, and I understand my understanding of the thinking of the commission last year was that it was one person who came, she needed space, she parked her one car in the back, She did her work in the back and specifically conditioned that there was no sales, so you didn't have a retail side of it. You didn't have a classroom side of it. She wasn't giving painting lessons. It's my belief that that actually draws the line in the sand. If you're going to allow 2 uses, then we have to look at the last permitted special permit use, and that was for an artist studio, for a single person to come in, use it, not give classes, not sell anything, not have exhibitions. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit. I'd say if this commission is inclined to grant this application, it needs to look at the last non-conforming use, second non-conforming use, and then condition it appropriately. If you do something else, which is basically what they're asking for, is now to allow a retail type use, people coming, going, 5 cars coming in, at 3 o'clock to drop off 5 kids, then coming and going, it increases the traffic, it changes the nature. It's not 1 car pulling in at 9 o'clock in the morning and pulling out at the end of the day. So I'm sorry, you had a question?
I did. It's going to take me a moment to remember what it might have been. No, that's fine. I guess in part I was trying to, and I think you answered it. Your understanding is that to the extent that we've permitted through special permit ongoing non-conforming uses, at some point we decided that the retail was allowed, and then at some point we decided that the retail and the office were allowed because maybe in theory the retail could have had its own office use and all that, and then the particulars of that specific office use were so relatively benign that we could handle that. I recused myself from the artist studio parts and stood outside in the hall for an extraordinarily long period of time because the commission worked its way through this. But your take is that the artist studio is then less intense of a use than the office, and now a music studio would be a more intense use than the artist studio and or the Wells Fargo office because of the number of cars, because of, tell me where the non-conformity increases beyond just we have another non-conforming use.
Okay, and I'll just step back. For example, when Wells Fargo was allowed, the commission specifically said it couldn't be a real estate office because they didn't want the traffic.
Weekend hours.
Weekend hours, but also just the traffic of customers coming in and out. So I think that the commission's been fairly consistent in reviewing these applications that allowing Mr. Pelosi some economic use of that by renting out to a business person or a person who's going to use the space and use it alone, that's sort of the line in the sand and that you've drawn. Mm-hmm. Our concern is that now if you allow a use that specifically encourages and requires customers or students to come and go during a busy time, that increases the non-conformity more, it has a greater impact on the neighborhood, and contrary to subsection E of 373.16, where
273.16.
273.13.
273.13E, which is no non-conforming use of land, buildings, or other structures, which is changed to conform, or to more nearly conform to these regulations, shall thereafter be changed to a more non-conforming use.
Okay.
So we think that's really the applicable regulation here for you to consider.
All right. I'm going to throw out a challenge for you. If for whatever reason flooring became a trend, and all of a sudden people said, gotta have that new shag carpet, and all of a sudden they're doing land office business, aren't we dealing with?
We could be, but that's sort of the risk you run when you have a single non-conforming use.
Okay.
The law allows intensifications of a non-conforming use. So if you were in
In the flooring business and shag carpet comes back into fashion.
then good for Mr. Boyce.
Okay.
And his business can grow, and that's acceptable under statutes and case law and everything.
You're concerned about a scenario in which shag carpeting comes back into fashion and people are dying to take violin lessons.
Right, and it's,
Okay.
and, you know, it's not a 3 to 7 and Saturdays, but it's, you know,
Okay.
9 to 5, or 9 to 7, or 9 to 8, and you have, you know, multiple users
I get it.
coming in and going all day.
So I have a question. I just want to make sure that I'm on the same page as everyone here. Mr. Jelly moved in 1963.
Correct.
There was a retail space across the street in 1963,
There was actually a manufacturing.
but there was a business across the street.
Yes.
And you would like to see that business or that retail space to become residential space.
Well, I don't know. I'll let you think
Well,
about it.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if you look around town, look at what has happened to a lot of the industrial and commercial street. Fair Street, the Foundry, is now residential, which is what was supposed to happen. The Foundry on Boston Street is now residential. The store near you.
Oh, Benton's Market.
Has
It's now a house.
What?
It's now a
house.
very expensive house.
The liquor store down by Leeds Island
On 146.
on 146 has become residential. So you have done, or the commission has done a good job, or something has done a good job in doing what the statute says is supposed to happen. And we'd like to see the same thing happen across from us.
And while Mr. Jelly can't force that to happen, what happens in the life of any piece of property is as it comes to a commission, you sort of have these moments where, you know, it sets the course for what the property will do, what it'll become in the future. And so if that sailboat mass manufacturing was still there, Mr. Jelly, he'd have to live with it. You know, that would be the true non-conforming use. They could still be manufacturing in there, or conveyor belts. But as the uses change, the policy and regulations say we try to minimize it. We try to, you know, carve away and get it as close to conforming as possible. So having, you know, moved the line a little bit, what we're asking is that not be allowed to move back. So I'll just say I didn't do, just one substantive note, I didn't do a full like parking calculation, but looking at section 50A, of parking regs, says that if any existing use of land, buildings, or other structure is changed to use requiring additional off-street parking, to comply with this article, additional spaces shall be provided for the new use. So I don't know, I guess I'll leave it to your staff, but it would seem that if you're going to add a new use where people are coming and going, you already have parking on the site, you would need to add new parking for the new use. I know in the artist studio it wasn't an issue because there was parking for her in the back, but my understanding is they'd all be coming in the front door here. And it seems like parking should be considered. And also just, Bob, if you just put on the record, this is a busy intersection, so I just want to get a little of that on the record so we understand the intersection we're talking about.
I think from the plan that you understand that there are two parking areas. There's one that leads out onto River Street that has 6 or 7 spaces, and that's outside the artist studio. And then there are 7 or 8 spaces on Water Street, out on the Water Street. As we all know, the amount of traffic that comes from the west on Water Street, Route 146, it makes the left turn onto River Street. There's no stop sign on Water Street. Makes that left turn faster and faster nowadays, everyone trying to get ahead of the traffic that is coming from the east on 4th Street. And by and large, because there is not much traffic in and out of Fourcrays and the parking on Water Street, people are not accustomed to thinking in terms of a car coming out from Fourcrays onto Water Street in either direction. And putting in mothers with children getting into lessons and things coming in and out doesn't help the traffic situation at all. So that you know, it isn't just idle to talk about additional traffic and so on. It really is a very serious intersection that doesn't lend itself easily to traffic.
Okay, thank you.
And just to conclude, we feel that this would be taking a step back, which isn't allowed under your regs or under the case law. And so we, believe me, Mr. Jelly and I both, we struggled with this about what to do, because it's not our intent to injure Mr. Pelosi, but Mr. Jelly needs to consider, you know, the future of that site, his house, the neighborhood, and you know, Mr. Pelosi could sell it tomorrow, and that could be a much different use, a much different what should I say? It could change substantially. So we feel that when issues like this are brought to this commission, we need to confirm that everything stays going in the right direction. And we don't, you know, because of desire to be neighborly and to do the right thing in one specific case, that we set up a situation that could be dangerous to the Jellies and to the neighborhood in the future. So it's nothing personal. I'm sure that's cold comfort to the applicants. But for the long term, we feel it would be the right thing to do to deny this application, or if it was approved, to limit it in the same way that the artist studio was conditioned.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jelly. Anybody else wishing to speak against the application? Okay, anybody on the commission have any other questions? Would you like to make a rebuttal to the applicant? Is there any further comments you'd like to make, sir, or
You
ma'am?
raised your hand at some point, I thought.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Please.
I just want to clarify any confusion about how many, when I say I teach small group lessons, they're only on Saturday morning. I generally, all weekdays long, I only teach one student at a time. You know, there aren't 5 cars coming into the parking lot, dropping off 5 children at a time. That really is only happening for a couple of hours on Saturday morning. So just to clarify that, I don't know that that changes a lot, but it is sort of.
Well, let me ask this. So you said that 3 to 7 p.m. weekdays, 9 to 2 p.m. on Saturdays.
Right.
And then you said, I thought, that there'd be 5 students at most. Does that mean spread out over the time frame or in one class?
No, I do teach group classes, but
Okay.
there are only 2 of them, and I don't plan to expand that. And they only happen for less than 2 hours on Saturday morning. Every other time included in that time frame is just single lessons, so
Okay.
just one
One
family.
student at
Right.
a time.
What was the time you wanted to be open on Saturday?
9 a.m.
9 to 2.
Right.
Okay, and that would be the only day you would have more than one student at a time.
That's right.
And at most, you'd have 5, is what you're asking for.
That's right.
Okay. Any other questions, just so we're sure? Anything else, Reg, about the parking? I mean, attorney.
There's adequate parking.
I think what Reggie was saying was that the parking standard, there's no special parking standard for school or that's different from or requires more parking spaces than office. So if the parking, whatever parking is required for office, that would be the same that parking
All
would
right.
be available for this new
And
use.
you're of the opinion that if the peak is 5 students at any one time, that parking could be accommodated there, assuming all 5 drove there?
They could accommodate it either in the front parking lot or in the back parking lot on River Street.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments from the commission? Sir, would you like to make one final rebuttal?
The building, I know it would be nice to get to go residential, but it's such a big building that's been there since, 1901. It has a lot of issues with, it's in a floodplain, and, different issues that it's like, it doesn't make financial sense right now to like convert that type of space into residential. It would be nice, but it wasn't planned at one time before I did buy it, but it's just there. It's just a big building. I'm trying to be very considerate of who goes in there. I'm trying to put somebody that's going to be invasive to the neighborhood. That's always my thought. I must have had 20 different people that applied for it. This seems to be the most, least invasive for the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing on this application, and we'll move forward with the Sharon Crane application. This is a CAM site plan approval for replacement of previously existing deck that was destroyed by Hurricane Sandy. We did site walk this, so we'll get the presentation first, and then we'll...
Good evening, my name is Sharon Crane. I live at 151 Neck Road, and I have submitted the application which shows the original permit. We bought the house in 1976, and I requested permission to add a deck at that time. So I have those permits here, but I believe they've all been submitted. And then we built on in 1991. And again, we asked permission or granted permission to have the building and the deck. We had the deck, and then Hurricane Sandy destroyed the deck, and they said they were coming out for a site, but I'm not sure that they did. So if I could just...
We did.
We
Oh,
did.
we did. Okay.
3 of us were there.
Okay,
Along
so
with,
we didn't pass...
Yes,
The
we
three of
saw
us
it.
saw it.
We saw it.
okay,
We saw it
I know
firsthand.
they said they were coming, and I didn't see it.
This,
so-
I will attest,
Oh,
this is
okay,
an accurate
so,
representation. of what we saw.
Basically, we have also submitted from our builder the exact details and dimensions for what he will do to just rebuild the exact deck and the footprint from before. So basically, we're just asking permission to replace what Hurricane Sandy destroyed last year.
Okay. We have 2 letters in the file. First one's from John Goucher of the State for the Office of Long Island Sound Programs regarding 151 Neck Road. We have reviewed the proposal and have no comments from the Planning and Zoning Commission's knowledge. The next one we have is a letter dated April 9th from Kevin McGee, Town Environmental Planner. The applicant proposes to rebuild a deck within 100 feet of a coastal resource. Proposed work requires minimal site disturbance. In order to make sure that the coastal resources are protected, any material dug out for the installation of pilings should be removed to a location away from the coastal resources. In addition, the contractor should inspect the site daily to make sure that all construction debris has been properly disposed of. And you don't have any problem with that, do you?
So what's that mean?
Well, it means that
I mean, obviously, we have to have
you need to...
pillars to hold
Right.
up the deck.
It means that you have to make sure that the coastal resources are protected from any material dug out for the installation of pilings, and that it should be moved to a location away from the coastal resources. In other words, you can't just dig it out and leave it there. You're going to have to move it away.
Yeah.
All right.
When he digs out the sand and the dirt, don't dump it out.
Oh, okay, no, all
And
right.
then just to make sure that your contractor makes an inspection daily to make sure that all construction debris have been properly disposed of, so that in case, we get a storm or something, they don't go floating out to
Okay.
sea. Okay, questions?
From the sidewalk, it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it was pretty
Where the deck
straightforward.
was, and in theory, where the deck was going to be back, so I have very limited questions.
Any questions from the public? Anybody wishing to speak in favor? Anybody wishing to speak against? Any other comments, questions at this point? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item is Joshua McGuire. This is property located 128 Tuttle Point Road. This is an after-the-fact CAM site plan application for the reconstruction and repair of a previously existing seawall in the same location and at the same height as it was before Tropical Storm Sandy. Sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Michael Harkin. I'm a professional engineer and principal of Harkin Engineering, located at 78 Wolf Hollow Lane in the town of Killingworth, Connecticut. Again, I'm here tonight on behalf of Mr. Joshua McGuire for his property at 128 Tuttle's Point. Just to familiarize yourself with this, Mr. McGuire's house is to the west side of Tuttle Point Road. What you see on the right side is a grassy area. There was a pre-existing retaining wall there, and then kind of a rocky shorefront. His neighbor, N.F. Slade, has a half-built or constructed dock that's been sitting there for a while. There's a bunch of poles that have been installed. We're here tonight because, again, just like the previous application, Sandy came in and had taken out this small wall that pre-existed. It was one of those kind of Nicoloc blocks, the small landscape blocks, maybe like 2 feet by 1 foot in diameter or in length. What had happened is just the wave action totally took those, tore them out, and spread them all over the street and yard. What we did is we were contacted by Mr. McGuire, then we contacted the town about the correct procedures on how to go about rebuilding this right after Sandy. So we did call up. What we did is we sent out Mr. Eric Anderson to perform an A2T2 survey of the site after the storm. The reason for that is seawalls up the whole shoreline it's a very difficult process if you're within this coastal jurisdiction line with DEP. So the first thing we needed to do is find out where that CJL line was. Getting that survey back, we were 15 to 20 feet away from that CJL line, so that kicked it into a municipal approval rather than a DEP Long Island Sound approval.
When you're saying CJL, you're referring to coastal jurisdiction line, you're saying that's to the waterward?
Waterward.
Of where, so this is not a DEP erosion control structure?
Exactly. We are 15 feet further away from that CJL line, so we are not within the Office of Long Island Sound program.
CJL used to be mean high tide?
Yes, and they switched it over to coastal jurisdiction line just so everybody throughout the whole town
You
had.
got the lingo down there, too good.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to follow.
I did about 40 of them
Okay.
after the storm. So what we're doing here is we went through and we replaced that existing wall at the same height in the same location. We had that survey. You can see from the photos, this is as the storm was rolling in. This is 2 days after the storm, what you saw eroded, and this is what's out there now. For those of you that went on the sidewalk, you can see. We replaced it with granite block, Stony Creek granite. It's approximately 2 feet by 3 feet by 4.5, 5 feet. Heavier stone. I didn't want to put back something that the next storm is going to come in and I'd be back in front of you. So that stone is all in place. It's heavy. They backfilled the area. The only thing that hasn't been done yet is final seeding because of the weather, but that should be going in pretty soon.
And it's just one layer of block?
Just one layer of block. What we did, just for extra reinforcement, is below subgrade, about 2 feet down, we used marine chain and chained it all in to try to hold it, just in case there is a large storm that comes in. It's all physically one unit.
One is connected?
Yes.
Sorry, could you just explain that connection one more time? How do you connect the blocks?
What we do is below subgrade, you know, if a large storm event comes in, you know, one block can, let's just say, flip over. What we do is we marine chain it and use the kind of a tensioner to physically lock the whole bottom perimeter in. So if one wants to flip over, the whole wall's going to have to. It's basically you acting as one physical dimensional wall.
You wrap the perimeter in a chain, or
In
you
a
have
chain.
anchors?
No, we wrap them in, basically creating one.
You wrap the outside perimeter?
Absolutely, and then we ratchet strap it down. Yeah.
And you still left a gap between each block by like an inch or 2 inches?
Well, we'd rather have them flush. There we still get some drainage, but yes, just the way the granite's cut, there is gaps in between.
Could you describe the maybe you didn't see the site before the storm, but could you describe the way that a storm surge could drain back out of the wall, both with the old construction and the new construction? Once a wave comes up and over the wall, as it's coming back, could you describe what you perceive to be that process?
Yeah, basically when a wave comes in or a surcharge in this area, I think the surcharge volume was approximately 5 feet. So if your wall was, say, at the table, it was completely submerged. So the waves that were actually crashing in were crashing at the street. So after the fact, when the tide started to recede, this whole area was jumbled up. So it slowly took everything away, including the block that you see here. There was some block not waterward, but forward of this existing wall, but there's also block strewn up the street. So the same thing can happen in this area where the wave action comes in and can take all the sediment away, but the physical weight and the chain connection will leave this block in place. Hence, we went for the bigger block just so a bigger storm comes in, all the sediment behind it will be missing, but the block will still be intact.
Could you compare the relative strength of the old wall and the new wall? In
It's
whatever
approximately
terms?
just physical weight. I can pick this up with one hand. I need a backhoe to pick that one up. It probably, each block maybe 2 tons, weight of a car. That's just a simple maybe 20, 25 pound block. That's not connected. You can see that they're just stacked.
Okay, thank you.
David?
Sorry, Tom's got a question.
The third picture there with the new block in place, physically, when was that taken?
That was taken, I would have to say sometime in March. Yeah.
So my question is there a plan in place to do something with the soil behind? Are you going to try to replicate what's in picture 1 so that you have something trying to hold that soil in there?
Absolutely. The question is, and the answer is yes. We want to put the grass seed and grass back on top of that. There is some small piles that haven't been spread yet. They will be spread. For the most part, when they were putting this in, the ground was frozen, so they put as much soil back as they physically can. They couldn't seed it at that time because the seed wouldn't take. So they will be, if it hasn't been done already, and I haven't been out there in a week or so, it will be done pretty soon.
Sure, Tom, why don't you go, and then we'll go to David.
Why is this an after-the-fact application?
That was my question.
I'm asking the town. Why is it considered an after-the-fact?
It's the work's already been done.
Right.
How did that happen, hypothetically, do you know?
Oh, absolutely. It's happened all up the shore. When there's an emergency situation where another storm can come in and even cause more damage, a lot of times DEP and a lot of municipalities said, hey, fix it, knowing that after it's done or when it's starting to be done, you have to file a permit. So hence, going back to January, our first call was, hey, we have this problem here. This is what we're going to do. We realized that we have to file a permit, but we have to fix it. We're not asking bigger, badder, we're just same place, same exact thing.
Even though we determined there wasn't a DEP jurisdiction issue.
Well, that was the biggest thing. If it was a DEP jurisdiction issue, DEP had put out emergency authorization, which said, if you have an emergency and you are within that CGL line, you have to submit a letter to the DEP notifying them that, hey, you will do that permit after, but you can fix everything you need to, same height, same location.
But that wasn't the fact here.
That's right, because we're not within there, hence we called the town and said, we need to fix this.
And the town said,
We're sort of
we can
playing
sell
by
and
the
then.
same, we're playing by the same rules. as
Okay,
DEP.
the town said, fix it and then.
Fix it, and then we'll
get your permit.
We'll get the permit. We have a couple letters in the file. The first one is from John Goucher, Office of Long Island Sound Programs for the State, regarding 128 Tuttle's Point Road. We have reviewed the proposal and have no comments for the P&Z's consideration. In addition, we have a letter for Kevin McGee, Environmental Planner. This application is for the after-the-fact reconstruction of a seawall. The original seawall, which was constructed out of concrete blocks, was damaged during Storm Sandy. The applicant has reconstructed the seawall out of granite blocks at the approximate same location and height. As a condition of approval, I recommend that an A2 survey of the seawall be performed to document the wall's location and height, along with photographs of the wall from multiple angles. Copies of the documentation of the seawall should be provided to the zoning enforcement officer. This documentation of the seawall will assist the property owner and future owners with the information required for future permits for repairs and/or reconstruction of the seawall. Were you aware of the letter? It's dated today.
Yes, I received
Okay.
it today. I talked to Kevin about it. Within the packet, when we submitted, there are multiple pictures of different angles, both the front face of the wall and the rear face of the wall, so we did submit that. If the as-built A2 survey, A2, T2, is required and the commission thinks it's required, then, we don't have a problem doing that. We just don't want to be the one that set a precedence where it hasn't been done in the past. We don't want to be the one that has to do it. Just to let you know, the survey itself, which you see here, which documents the old wall in that location, let's just say for some reason this was wiped out, we have that information already within.
And that is an A2, right?
This is an A2, T2 survey by a licensed surveyor,
Okay.
which was submitted with the application.
T2.
Topography, elevations.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, any questions from the public? Anybody wishing to speak in favor? Anybody wishing to speak against? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if I can get a motion to approve the revised agenda.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, first item to discuss is shoreline strings. If I can get a motion to discuss that first.
I'll read a motion.
Go ahead, please.
Voted the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit for a change in non-conforming use from office to music instruction for shoreline strings at 125/129 Water Street, map 32, lot 17, as shown on an application dated 3/20/213 and as heard at a public hearing on May 1, 2013. This application is approved with the following conditions. And I'm gonna put a condition in here that the school can be open only for between the hours of 3 and 7 on weekdays, and on Saturday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., and that the special permit would be granted for 2 years, and it would sunset at the end of 2 years.
You said 9 to 2, is that Saturday only?
Saturday only.
Thank you.
And I should probably say no hours on Sunday.
Point of information, I think maybe you might want to amend to 3 p.m. on Saturday. I believe that she was saying that her last lesson starts at 2.
Okay.
That would imply it ending at 3
And
at the
no
latest.
Sunday hours.
Just as a question at this point, I believe she said that during the week there'd be only one student at a time, and on Saturday there'd be a maximum of 5 students at any one time. Is that also anything, Tom, you want to consider, or do you want to just let it go as it is? It's your decision.
Previously, one of the ways we've handled this nonconformity and the sensitivity of neighbors is by being pretty specific about exactly what is being allowed.
So if we just,
I think it's a good idea.
if we then just said at no time can there be more than 5 students.
Well, weekday hours are individual student lesson only.
Right, the applicant.
Weekends, no more than 5 per person
At
group lesson.
any one time.
On that one Saturday.
Any one lesson.
Would we want to also specify, even though they said they weren't doing performances there, it may be good to stipulate that.
What do we say for Saturday, 5?
At
9
to 3. And
No, in terms
A
of the
maximum
number of
of
students
5.
on Saturday.
Max of 5.
no more than 5 students at any one time. On Saturday only. And it might be a good idea just to reinforce the fact that no performances are allowed on site. Concerts.
No concerts, recitals, events.
Recitals.
Is that your motion, Tom?
Just want to make sure you're okay, Tom.
I'm just going to use performances. I think that sort of covers
Well,
everything.
why don't we
So you need a second.
Second.
get a second, and then we can discuss.
And also, how about the time limit?
You're going to have to re-second the second.
You said 2 years, didn't you?
Two
Is that
years.
okay?
It's fine
Fine with me. we'll get it out and for a discussion and see if we need to modify it. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, let's get some discussion. Tom, why don't you start since you proposed it?
I guess I really don't understand. This doesn't change the size of the building. It does somewhat change the use of the building. You know, I wasn't around when this non-conforming regulations and laws came into effect. I think this is a good use of the property, and I think it's fair to the abutting property owners, and I think it's also fair to the owner of the property.
Okay, thank you. Peter, do you have any comment?
You know, it's been some kind of business for many, many years, going back to 1963, could have been longer, so I think the new owner has the right to rent it as long as the non-conforming use meets, you know, our goals, and that is the planning and zoning goals, and I think it does. And I think the business is very non-invasive, and I think it's a good fit for that space.
Okay, Kim.
At first, I was hesitant hearing that it was a music studio and that we're going to, I envisioned it to be more, but I'm comfortable with it, the way that we're restricting it to really, if there are 2 or 3 office workers there, where in Wells Fargo was in the place, now there's, you know, the teacher, maybe a parent, and a student, largely except for Saturday mornings. I'm comfortable with it.
Thank you. Frank, any input?
Yeah, basically the same. The conditions I think were really good, and ultimately I feel that it's not expanding nonconformity. I didn't approve it last time when he came because I thought it was. This time I clearly see it as it's not expanding on the nonconformity.
Okay.
So
Appreciate that. David?
I am ultimately pleased with the narrow limitations being put on this, because again, the concern is always that an applicant comes and says, I'm only going to do this, and then it, you know, 6 months later it's a different office, or if it's a different retailer, or if it's a different whatever. So I think it's important that we have narrowly defined it this way. I ultimately, however, am swayed by the legal argument presented both by Mr. Jelly and by Attorney Casey, I think, correct? In the sense that I'm probably not swayed by the previous additional special permit uses have expired. I think it's, in a sense, a little unrealistic to require a property owner who has a special permit that's expiring to line up, tee up, and get approval for another special permit before that tenant leaves or that permit expires. I've looked at the record, and thankfully I was apparently smart enough to be consistent, and at the time when the office use was proposed, I voted against it. And I think in this case I'm going to stick with that, just because I do think that is an increase in terms of traffic, particularly on Saturday. And we have a regulation that essentially says you can have a non-conforming use, but you can't make it more intense. And I think in this particular instance, that is happening. You know, for what it's worth, I'm again, I go back to, I'm pleased that the limitations on it will limit whatever negative impact might happen.
Walter.
Mr. Chairman, I am in favor of the motion as proposed. I think that this will have a slightly positive impact on the development of our town center. I think that it's in keeping with our goals as we move forward as a town. I think that our plan for conservation and development really looks more towards this kind of business occurring in town. I think that the nuisance to neighbors, which was a major focus of mine, is minimal in terms of sound pollution. I think that the nuisance to neighbors, including Mr. Jelly, will be minimal in terms of traffic, especially because of the River Street lot, which is what I think will be the most convenient and most heavily used. I'm sensitive to the danger of the of the intersection. However, it's more of a slow intersection than a dangerous one in my perception. Also, the nuisance of construction is non-existent, and the convenience to our tenant, to the population of Guilford as well as local populations around us is significant.
Okay.
I would ask Tom to amend the motion to something slightly less onerous for the business owner to provide more certainty, specifically a 3-year or a 4-year term. But I will vote for it as is.
Okay. These are always difficult cases, especially the history of this situation and the fact that it's a residential area. People who live in residential areas have a right to expect residential type uses, and on the other hand, we have a owner of some property here which at one time was commercial, and I think over the years has gone out of his way, probably at some cost to himself in terms of the rents he could get, to try to find uses here that are appropriate given this situation. So these are never easy, and the way I try to approach this is not, for rule number one, no, don't increase the nonconformity. I don't think this is. Leave it the same or make it less, hopefully less, but you can't always get that. And you've got to balance the rights of the owner, since we don't want to get into a situation where we're getting into a taking kind of a situation. The other thing I would say, listen to Mr. Gale, and he brings up a lot of good points. The conditions, though, in this case, I'm comfortable with, because the applicant actually stated that this is the way that I believe she was going to run her business. So these conditions should not be a problem for her, and I think it affords protection to the residential owners, which they should expect as well. 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, I'm not. I'll vote for whatever the majority feels is appropriate. I'm not as concerned with that. Again, it is a sensitive area, so if we err, I'd rather err. I understand that you want to do what's right for both owners. In a situation like this is a music school. I don't think there's a lot of capital investment that's going to be put in, changes or renovations that you're going to need to capture your investment on in a short time period. So I'm less concerned with the shorter time period here than if there was significant investment or capital that needed to be put in to get the business up and running. All right, so.
Well, I didn't actually read the end of I still have to read this.
Yes.
I realize that, but
Well,
my question is, if we leave this at 2 years, do they have to come back in and do another full-blown presentation? What would be the process if we leave it at 2 years versus 3 years or 4 years?
They have to come back to.
They have to file for a
Yes.
permit and everything?
Yes.
Well, then I'm inclined to make it 4 years.
Second
Okay.
that part.
All right, so the proposal is
You
4
said
years.
4, right?
4
You
years.
said 3 or 4, right?
Yeah, you just said, but you just said 4?
I said 4.
Okay.
All right, and let me ask you, if you would, Tom, to read the remainder of the motion, and then we'll ask to have the whole thing reseconded if someone is willing to do so.
So that means it would expire in 2017, is that correct?
Okay, and then,
The special permit is approved based upon a finding that the new use will have no greater impact on the residential uses than the existing office use. The special permit is effective on May 10th, 2013, and upon the filing with the town clerk.
okay, we got a resecond.
Resecond.
Okay, any further discussion
I
based?
have one.
Kim?
They have to come back in if they want to change an hour, add a student, any of that, correct?
Yes,
Any of the
Okay.
conditions.
Yes.
That's fine.
that's absolutely correct. All right, any further discussion? If there isn't, then I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the revised motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? One opposed, all others in favor, that's carried. Okay, moving forward, if I can get a motion for the Sharon Crane matter.
Sure.
I'll read it. Okay, voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a coastal site plan application for Sharon Crane for a deck replacement at 151 Neck Road, map 25, Lot 14G, as shown on application dated April 3rd, 2013. This application is approved with the following conditions: that any material dug out for the installation of pilings be removed to location from coastal resources, and that the contractor inspect the site daily to make sure that all construction debris has been properly disposed of. This application is approved based upon a finding that it conforms with the zoning code and is consistent with coastal management policies of the state of Connecticut.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We had a site walk, and
We
I
walked
will,
out there, you could see where the deck used to be, you could see what the deck was gonna be. This is an easy one.
it's fairly straightforward, not much to say. Okay, as such, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Unanimous. Okay, if I can get a motion for the McGuire matter.
I'd like to make a motion that the Guilford Planning and Zoning approve coastal site plan application for Joshua McGuire at 128 Tuttle's Point Road, map 17, lot 18B, as shown on an application dated April the 1st, 2013. I guess there's no conditions. The application is approved based upon the finding that it conforms with the zoning code and is consistent with the coastal management policy state of Connecticut.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay.
Kevin did recommend that condition regarding the A2 survey.
Well, that's what I want to have discussion on, so why don't we talk about the need for an A2? There's already an A2T2 for the as-built, I'm sorry, for the way it was.
Former, no longer with us.
And in
seawall.
addition, I guess there are pictures to document in the file what currently exists. So I don't,
I'm comfortable with that.
you know, I don't know if we need to put the applicant through the expense of another A2, but I'm willing to listen to input. I mean, I think we've documented what's there, the height. There is an A2 of the layout, the way it was.
Did they have to file an as-built?
Pardon me?
Did they have to file an as-built?
Not
Just
unless
some
we
kind of
require
drawing,
the
something?
A2, and I don't know if we've ever required that in a situation like this before.
I don't think we have. I think Kevin was arguing that it's in the applicant's best interest to do that, in which case, if they feel it is, they can do an A2, obviously. regardless
Meaning to
of what-
establish what they were permitted to
Correct.
and
Regardless
approved to
of
have.
If you don't, even if you don't require one, if they feel it's, obviously they can do it if they want.
Meaning, so that next time the ocean washes this thing away, or the sound washes this thing away, we'll be better able to establish what.
That's the point. That's the
Yeah.
point that Kevin's making.
Okay.
So, but again, the burden's on them to establish that what is, if this happens in the future, what they feel
Correct.
conforms to. So if they feel that's something that will help, great. If not, then it's at their own risk. All right, having said that, any other discussion? So we'll go with the motion
I would
as is.
I would just like to say that this wall is drastically better than the old wall in many very important respects, especially in terms of stability, and I just think you've done a great job. The kind of storm that entirely ripped out the last wall will happen again, and it'll happen again much sooner than 100 years from now.
Probably this year.
Probably this year.
This fall.
So we'll see if it actually works.
It's averaging out to every 1.5 years, I think. So, but whether or not, I think that the weight of these blocks, as well as the fact that they provide enough space to allow the ocean to go back where it came from, is very helpful. I think probably it is in the best interests of the property owner to have a serious as-built or a serious A2 because of future issues that could occur, but I don't think that we need it to be able to approve of this design.
Good. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Unanimous. Oh, thank you. All right, let's move forward with the site plans. We have application from Walmart. This is a site plan revision to allow the outdoor display of seasonal landscaping and gardening merchandise from March 15th through October 30th. Apparently, they have
Is
a...
it March or May?
It's May? Okay, it says March here, but we'll amend that to May. And I believe there is maybe you can get us up to date on this, but I believe there is a variance that was granted on this.
You don't actually, the variance hasn't actually been produced yet, but it was approved last week by the zoning board of appeals. I think you have a copy of what they applied for.
It was
Yeah,
produced.
and this is,
Oh,
so this is a site plan.
No, it's incorrect, there's some incorrect wording on it. It needs
Aha.
to be revised, but it was produced.
So this is just a site plan, and that site plan does conform with the variance that was granted.
Correct. Well,
Yes.
here's the variance. We're asking you to make that conditional. This is the same display that they had last year on the sidewalk in front of the building.
But they needed a variance for that. Oh, I'm sorry, sir, go ahead, why don't you?
The applicant's here.
Yeah, I know.
Go through Walmart, 900 Boston Post Road. It's the same exact plan we put in last year. The ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals, will only approve us on an annual basis. I have to reapply every year. So, you know, and their reason for doing so is that should we leave that building, and anything they approve tied to whoever comes after us.
Okay.
I will tell you, we're in it for the long haul, though. Better to just put a new roof on.
All right, are there any questions of the applicant?
Can I just have
Sure.
a quick history? We've been doing this now for how many, 3 years? 4 years?
Yes.
And we've had absolutely no comments from the public, right?
No.
All right.
Actually,
So I
some
want to-
positive ones.
Yeah.
Just positive ones.
Has Walmart ever closed a store?
What's that?
Has Walmart ever closed a store?
Actually, we did. We closed New Britain location.
Oh, yeah, right.
But then we opened up, well, it's not so much close as relocate.
So we couldn't do something that would allow them, instead of having to come back every year.
Well, we're tied, our
We
hands
have
are
to
sort of
change
tied
the
by the
regulations.
variance.
We have-
What you're trying to do?
We have a regulation that says the store cannot be any bigger, and we've interpreted the south side display area to be actually an expansion of the store size. And that's why
Retail space.
the retail area, that's why it has to have a variance. So we could change the rules to say, you know, you can have a limited amount of outside storage, that wouldn't constitute an expansion, then they wouldn't have to do this, but, you know, that'd have to be a zoning amendment.
Well, why don't we,
This gives you something.
yeah, send this to the, probably the zoning committee, I would think it would be appropriate to take it up next time, just to have.
Of course, that would apply to everybody else, too.
That's right, that's right, okay, but that's why I want it studied
Yes,
before we
right.
shoot from the hip.
Right.
We have to have a public hearing on this?
No, it's just.
So why can't we approve this tonight?
You can't.
We can't,
That's what I'm asked to approve it. You can only.
We're
approve
going
it
to do. We have a
in
motion,
conformance
so-
with the variance, though.
Let me ask for a motion then.
The variance
So
was-
moved.
Well, there's actually a motion here.
Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve the site plan revision for Walmart at 900 Boston Post Road, map 47, lot 22B, in accordance with the variance granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals on April 24th, 2013, C 3263.
Okay, can I get a second? All right, now for some discussion. I mean, our hands are tied, we can only approve this for,
Can't do it, yeah, can't do anything beyond the variance.
but what I would say, let's take it up in zoning and take a look at it. I mean, I don't want to shoot from the hip and just say, let's open it up all over. Maybe that would make sense, but I think it needs some study before we do anything like that. So, having said that, any other discussion on this item?
Their current, they are currently allowed to do this without this extension up until September of this year?
I don't know, I forgot what the timeframe was.
What's your timeframe? Like-
October
No,
30th,
no,
this
it's
says.
seasonal.
It's seasonal. So right now, you've already got through October 30th of this year, and this is for next year.
No.
For this year?
No,
This
year.
I have to
You're
reapply
s-
every year.
You're selling stuff on the sidewalk right now, though, right? Because you still,
I'm in after the
It's, yeah, May 15th is when.
pending, you know, pending the decision here with the, whether we legal we have to take.
They've been indoors.
so the flowers getting sold right outside the front door on the sidewalk this past weekend, you're allowed to do that until
Till
May,
October.
till October.
May through October.
Yeah.
So what we do is we try to get it set for the first week of
Jump it
May.
down a little bit.
And we take everything off the sidewalk, completely clear all the way through the winter months, and then we set it up in the spring once again, so what it breaks. We usually the first week of May. What we
Okay,
do,
so-
we take everything off at the end of the season.
First week of May,
Last year,
or
He jumped
before,
he jumped the gun a little bit, but, you know, we got the variance last week. We figured, okay, so, you know, it's okay to put the stuff out there, but it's not technically okay until you actually approve the site plan tonight, if you do.
And the variance, does the variance have a time frame on it?
It's in 1 year.
It's 1 year.
No, I mean, but dates. What are the dates in the variance?
I think it's the same.
The variance they gave me was through this.
So it's a 5-month
It's May
variance.
15th through
Then I have to reapply again.
October 3rd.
October 3rd.
Same.
So it's
Okay.
a 6-month
So we're
variance.
approving the same thing that's in the variance, however, technically speaking, he's currently
Violation.
In
in
violation.
violation.
From April 18th through May 1st.
I wish I hadn't asked that question.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed?
But the fact that I can't approve somebody who's known to be in violation.
I've got to,
Just get out.
I've got to abstain, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
We've got, they've been in violation for 2 weeks, and knowingly at that. I mean, that's, right now, I mean, they knew that they needed this, and they just went out there and started selling it.
They had already applied.
They had already applied,
Yes.
but had not been
Got
approved.
it 2 other years, so.
Weeks ago,
Yeah.
were
Right.
already strung out by the system, so
And while they were strung out by the system, they decided to just go ahead and do it anyway?
they were
Yes.
Plain and
More or less.
sunshine.
Okay.
more or less.
All right,
All right,
thank
we
you.
have one abstention, one against, and the remaining folks in favor, so it's carried.
Can we just get a roll call on that, Mr. Chairman? I'm sorry.
Sure, all in favor?
No, a roll call, name by name. That's a roll call.
People who were voting in
Well, it
favor.
it should be on the record anyways, right? I mean, when it shows in the minutes.
Oh, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out which members are voting.
Oh, well, we all are. Everybody's voting tonight.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
No further questions, thank you.
All right, moving on. The coastal area management site plans, first one, Christina Hutton. This is an after-the-fact coastal area management site plan for 3 seawalls and 1 deck. This is for property located at 13, 17, and 23 Rock Lane. Receive and set a public hearing for June 5th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we remind everyone, we have a site walk this weekend.
No,
No,
next
weekend, next weekend.
Next Saturday.
Okay.
Second Saturday.
8:30, we're gonna meet at the town hall.
Oh, it was, you don't need
Okay,
7:30.
I won't be able to make that one, but I could make this one. Okay, Christopher McManus, property located at 86 Seaside Avenue. This is a CAM site plan application for demolition of existing house and construction of new residence within 100 feet of coastal area resource. Receive and set a public hearing for June 5th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, also,
Different house
Isn't that
than,
already down?
pardon me?
Shack down there?
Is that another-
We're talking about Judy Fines.
George, is that another house? Because didn't he already tear down the house that, this is a
Yes,
different house?
this is Judy Fines' house.
Across the street or something? Or
No,
Where is it?
there's the disheveled red cottage.
Yep.
And then there's Judy Fines' house.
Okay.
And
So this is different from the one we approved?
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, special permits, Anthony Terraciano. This is the Dough Market LLC, 934 Boston Post Road. Special permit to allow seasonal outdoor dining with light background music at restaurant within 100 feet of residential property. Receive and set a public hearing for June 5th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Khalib and Judy Orcott, property located 200 Orcott Drive. Special permit to allow accessory apartment in a single-family residence. Receive and set a public hearing for June 5th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have a letter in the file regarding the Russo Thornwood Phase 5. It's a request to declare this subdivision approval null and void. George, you want any history on this one? I see the letter from Eric.
Yeah, we haven't done this very often, but
This is at the applicant's request. right?
yes, in fact, you recall that subdivisions have to be filed within a certain
Maps.
period of time, subdivision maps, 90 days, and it can be extended up to a total of 270 days. That's all along past. So therefore, the subdivision is null and void. But the law actually requires that you make a finding that in fact is the case.
Which one's Thornwood Phase 5?
That's the lot that's kind of in the back.
But next to 95.
Yes,
Yeah.
next to 95.
It's
Thornwood?
between the existing Thornwood and 95. It's in the back, that subdivision. that
We're at
we-
exit 57?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay. And this is the thing way in the back?
Yeah.
yes.
It's kind of,
Okay.
it's like an excavation area.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
that was it.
and they haven't built any roads, they haven't built any of the improvements, they haven't fulfilled the requirements in theory of what would be,
And they haven't filed the subdivision map. So therefore, and any of those things, and I guess they want to get it off the tax roll as a separate.
As a separate
Yeah.
lot, so we're taking money out of the starving mouths of Guilford schools.
I don't know if you have any, sort of required, I mean, clearly the time frame is expired,
I'm in favor of my taxes going down, so this sounds like my taxes are gonna go up.
but you have to do what's the law requires.
That's a conflict.
Oh, hold on, I'm on the planning and zoning commission.
This board does.
Okay, so what we need to do is we need to make a finding here that the subdivision is now null and void by virtue of the expiration of the time required to file a subdivision map. And therefore, Section 270-6 of our regulations and Section 8-25 of the Connecticut General Statutes have not been met.
We're essentially required to make this determination, correct?
I think so. We've never really done this before, but.
We have a motion?
I mean, we're
That-
directed
well,
by the state.
That was the motion that I just
That's what the law-
made, so.
I'll second.
Second it. Okay, any other discussion on this? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's null and void. Couple announcements. Planning Committee, next meeting is May 21st, 5:15 PM in the Selectmen's Meeting Room. Oh, we already did that. And then we did Russo, and now we're on to the committees. Okay, the next item was the zoning committee meeting, May 13th, 2013, 5 PM, Town Hall South. Which one do you think we missed on?
No, you did it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, you said you did it. I did.
Okay.
I thought you even read it.
I thought I did.
Everything's right.
Approval of the
I think Tom
bills.
read it.
We have a bill from
No, I did
Royal
not.
Printing of $610. Get a
So
motion?
moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
$610?
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
okay. Having no further business, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.